So what exactly is this new instant coffee brand that is seemingly sponsoring all of my YouTube subscription feed? And why aren't they sponsoring me? Totally kidding. Mostly. Today I'm checking out a new type of instant coffee that has seemingly taken over every person on YouTube and their mother, and that is Cometeer. Quick disclaimer, I did purchase this by myself. So you might have seen them most recently featured on James Hoffman's latest video, which is comparing a $50 to a $500 to a $500,000 grinder at the Cometeer headquarters, which I recently learned is actually very close to me, about an hour's drive away. Now this brand has caught my eye because I've also seen them recently sponsoring a lot of my favorite tech YouTubers, which is really interesting for a coffee company. So today I'm going to be doing a live taste test of Cometeer for the first time, but before I get into that, this is your friendly reminder to subscribe if you haven't already and like this video. Okay, so Cometeer boasts some heavy claims on their website. The best coffee on the planet. Peak flavor, flash frozen. According to the website, 26 grams of coffee go into every capsule, brewed with a process that's carefully calibrated to extract as much flavor as possible from the beans, which we source from an array of the country's best roasters. As soon as it's brewed, it's frozen at a chilly -321 degrees to lock in its flavor. The result, a perfect icy puck of the most complex coffee you've never tasted. It does make sense in a way, you know, sort of like how frozen vegetables at a grocery store are flash frozen at its peak freshness. So this is basically a coffee concentrate that is flash frozen at peak freshness and is meant to be diluted with hot water or steamed milk, which I will test both methods out later. It sort of seems like a cold brew concentrate, but hopefully better. Another nice side note is that they do mention all their packaging and shipping materials are claimed to be 100% recyclable, which is always a nice plus, even down to the spent coffee grounds which are sent to compost. Now, because these are frozen and meant to be frozen, they are shipped with dry ice. So what if they melt? Well, Cometeer's site does say it can be refrozen and it maintains its peak flavor for up to 24 hours at room temperature or 3 days in a fridge. So now let's talk about some of the roasters that they partner with. I've actually tried a lot of these roasters, including George Howell, Red Bay, Equator, and Klatch, just to name a few. So I can testify from my own personal experience that the roasters they are working with are great and produce great coffee beans. There are several different ways, as mentioned earlier, that you can brew these pods, so I'll test out a few of them here. First with hot water and then with steamed milk, and of course you can do iced equivalents with cold water and cold milk. So the exact thing that I ordered here is called the Pilot Program Mixed Box, which also comes with a discovery guide, which is basically what the information they have online is. So it looks like here I've got the Equator blend from Equator. I've got the Brazilian Cake Lady from Red Bay Coffee. Both of these I have tried their actual beans before in the past. I've got the Chelbessa from Giget. Never heard of these, so this will be interesting to try out. And I've also got the Hologram from Counterculture Coffee, which I have also tried in the past. Not this specific blend, but I've tried Counterculture Coffee before. All right, so I don't want to waste too much coffee here, so I'm just going to go through two of these. This one has notes of milk chocolate, fruit, and syrup, so I might go with this one for the steamed milk. And let's go with the Chelbessa for our brewed coffee. So first, the Chelbessa, which has notes of strawberry, kumquat, and chamomile. It is a light roasted single origin, and the origin is Guji, Oromia, Ethiopia, washed Landrakis. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. And as mentioned earlier, it's from a roaster called Giget. Giget. Okay, so in the box we get 8 of these capsules that are made of aluminum, which is different than the normal K-cups you see in stores. So it's recyclable, it says drink, keep frozen, drink melted. So let's try it out. All right, so I'm going to brew into a mason jar here just so that you can see it from my second camera angle over here. Normally I don't brew hot coffee into a mason jar, but I'm doing it just so you can see it. This is what it looks like inside the capsule. So you can, kind of looks like it's been sort of melted and then refrozen based on the way it looks, but let's see how I can get this out. All right, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to get the coffee out of the capsule because of course it is frozen. Okay, so it looks like squeezing it a little bit made it pop right out. All right, so there we have our little coffee concentrate capsule in the mason jar. So it says here to add in 6 to 8 ounces of hot water, which I think is roughly 220 grams. So I'm going to do that right now. So while I wait for this to cool down a little bit, another interesting note is that they say you can actually run these through pod machines, which I don't have, but I think it's a good idea for those who are used to using pod machines. Hopefully these are a step up from those, of course. So it looks exactly like coffee. It smells like freshly brewed coffee. Let's go ahead and give this one a taste. Now, admittedly, I am not the best at describing how coffee tastes. I know, ironic for a coffee video, right? But what I will say is that this actually tastes surprisingly good. It tastes almost exactly like what I'd expect from brewing a nice pour over at home. You know, the aroma is nice. It's got all the smells of freshly brewed coffee. It doesn't really have anything unpleasant in the aroma. The acidity is great. Has a nice sweet tartness to it. It's not overly sour at all. I think one thing that surprises me most is the body. The body feels heavy and rich. It's definitely not thin. It's not astringent at all. Reminiscent of the body you get when you're brewing with a cloth filter. Not quite as heavily bodied as that, but it's quite nice still. This is a really good light roast coffee that tastes as if it was freshly brewed. I am genuinely surprised with how good this tastes. I mean, in theory, it sounds like it would be great. It's concentrated coffee that was frozen at peak freshness. And as you know, you can store coffee beans for quite some time in the freezer. And when you do roast them again, when you brew with them again, you still get the off gases as if they were freshly roasted beans. How about I also go and brew a capsule of the hologram, which has notes of milk chocolate, fruit, and syrup. From Counterculture Coffee. It's a medium roast, and the origin is natural Africa, washed Central and South America. So I'm going to brew this one using steamed milk. So for that, I'm going to be using my cappuccino cup here, which should hold roughly the 6 ounces of milk that they recommend you use. So it does require just a little bit of effort to sort of squeeze these aluminum capsules to get the coffee out. And this is what it looks like in the cup. All right, so let me go grab some milk and steam it and pour a latte with this instant coffee. All right, so I've got my steamed milk here and the Cometeer capsule half melted into the cup. Let's go ahead and see if we can make a latte. This one I'm a little bit more skeptical of. Brewed coffee I didn't have any issues with, but this one I'm a little more skeptical of. Might be harder to mimic instant espresso. Alright, so I poured just a little bit of the steamed milk to try and melt the Cometeer capsule thing as a base before attempting latte art. And let me see if I can... It's going to be a little bit hard to capture over on this second camera, but it looks more like just a little bit of a milky blob right now. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stir it up with the steamed milk. All right, I steamed the milk a little too thick, so it's definitely more of a cappuccino-like texture. I don't think the pod has fully melted yet. So appearance-wise, it's a lot lighter than a typical espresso-based milky drink that I usually make here at home. It definitely looks more like brewed coffee mixed with steamed milk rather than espresso mixed with steamed milk. But let me just keep stirring it, make sure that capsule is fully melted and incorporated into the milk. As a side note, I really do like these little Cruve brew stick things. I use these a lot when making a pour over as a way to sort of kaboom me into it. All right, so this looks to be thoroughly mixed in, so let's give the Cometeer steamed milk a taste. So, as expected, it does not taste like an espresso-based milk drink in my opinion. I think because of the lower amount of milk that you have to use as well, and because it's not as hot as something like boiling water, it has this weird sort of lukewarm temperature. So maybe pre-melting the Cometeer pod, maybe letting it sit inside the cup on top of the espresso machine might fare a little bit better than using this. Yeah, the lukewarm temperature is not fantastic. The taste of the coffee is good. I think I would like a little bit of a darker roast for milky drinks. The texture, of course, is great because the milk was steamed nicely, but it does taste a little bit more like brewed coffee with steamed milk as opposed to espresso with steamed milk. Overall, I would say it's not bad, but I would definitely first melt the capsule in the cup on top of the machine next time by letting it rest on top of the heat warming area, or the cup warming area, and then pouring the milk. I think that would fare a little bit better with temperature. Taste-wise, it's pretty good. I mean, it is still good coffee with steamed milk. Just definitely isn't that espresso sort of coffee that you're expecting when you're having something like a flat white or a cappuccino. Alright, so that concludes the taste test. Now let's go a little bit further into my final thoughts. Alright, so I took a few notes here off to the side, and here are my final thoughts about Cometeer coffee. Alright, so first, the pack of 32 capsules I ordered was $64, making each cup of coffee just about $2, which is slightly cheaper than my closest Starbucks, which sells an 8-ounce blonde roast for $2.35, and slightly cheaper than my nearest Dunkin' Donuts shop, which also sells a small coffee for $2.19. But what about compared to a specialty coffee shop? Well, the Intelligentsia store near me sells a cup of coffee, a 12-ounce daily brew, for $4.50, which is well more than double the cost of one of these pods. But what about grinding your own beans and brewing at home? Well, a 12-ounce or 340-gram bag of the George Howell Kanzu Rwanda, which is one of my favorite filter coffee beans, will run you $20.50. So 340 grams divided by 16 grams for brewing at a 1:16 ratio should yield about 21 cups of coffee, averaging just over $1 per cup. So not taking into account other things like a grinder, a kettle, the brewing method itself, are these capsules worth double what you might be able to brew by yourself at home? In my opinion, absolutely. Now here's why. First, this coffee is brewed very well, but more importantly, it's very consistent. You'll have the same experience brewing identical capsules back to back versus what you might experience by trying to manually brew it yourself at home. Second, portability and speed. If you're somebody who is coming from a capsule machine or still owns a capsule machine but does want to step up your coffee game, this should be a great way to get something that genuinely tastes like a freshly brewed cup of specialty coffee. It's going to be miles better than using those generic K-cups, and you wouldn't have to spend a ton of money on investing in gear to brew at home. You can even take these little pods with you to work or to class or on the go wherever you are, and all you would need to do is simply find some hot water to add to brew a cup of coffee. And third, it simply tastes good. This is definitely going to be miles better than anything you're going to get from a Starbucks or Dunkin' or another big chain, unless you are, of course, looking for that specific Starbucks-y coffee taste. So anyways, those are my thoughts on Cometeer. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to drop a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts about Cometeer down in the description below. Have you tried it? Are you interested in trying it? Let me know. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.